numbers for the live stream. I don't quite know why I've got that information, because if you're here, you don't need it. And if you're on the live stream, you don't need it either. But the live stream is on. I'd like to welcome everybody to that. And if everyone's okay, I think we should maybe kick off, because let's gather our seconds while they align. Mickey's big hand is that clock over there. We'll keep our eyes on Mickey's big hand all the way through. But ladies and gentlemen, very, very welcome to the ceremony for the launching or the publication of the roadmap. I'd like to start by asking all of this collected wisdom of aviation, why the hell we focus on roadmaps? What is the one thing we do in aviation? We don't drive on the road. What is this constant requirement for roadmaps? I wish I understood that, I really do. But nevertheless, we have another roadmap, and the reason why it's uncomfortable for you sitting on your chair at the moment is because you are sitting on the roadmap. And here it is, and it's a wonderful document with some really fantastic work has gone into it, and I really want to congratulate everybody who was involved. All that said, I would like to ask our host, the DG of Eurocontrol, Mr. Raul Medina, if he'd be so kind as to come up and to start the presentations. There's a stair here, Raul, if you want to do it easy.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Eurocontrol. So I'm very pleased to see so many colleagues here for this significant event marking the launch of the Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation roadmap for no more and no less the deployment of hybrid, electric and hydrogen flights in Europe. All these elements are all indeed strong and forward-looking drivers for aviation. Hybrid, electric and hydrogen are terms that are becoming more and more relevant and will be key for the future. For the future of aviation, but not only, for aviation, but also for the society in general. We meet at an important moment, that's quite clear. Aviation faces urgent climate challenges in a rapidly changing geopolitical environment. Actually, we are nowadays seeing how dependent our industries still are on fossil fuels, creating economic and strategic uncertainty. So it's essential to rethink not only how we power flights, from the technical point of view, but also how we strengthen the entire aviation system. So this is also about making Europe stronger and more resilient. I will come back, to this point in a second. Let us focus on the substance, on the content. The shift to zero-emission aviation is no longer a distant goal. It's a necessity. It requires coordinated action across sectors, from aircraft makers and energy providers to regulators, airport operators and investors. The whole system, aircraft, energy, airports and operations, must evolve together. And this has much in common with how the entire aviation system works, something that, by the way, we have highlighted many, many times in this meeting room. Stakeholders cannot work in isolation. Why? It's simple. This environment is too complex, to succeed in that way. So we cannot fly alone if we really want to deliver. Then, no single actor can achieve zero-emission aviation alone. Transformation depends on collaboration, a shared vision, and aligned investment to turn technology into operational reality. These are indeed common foundations needed to overcome many of the challenges that aviation is now facing. And transformation means innovation, indeed. But today is about more than innovation. It's about direction and commitment. We are here to define clear pathways, identify tangible steps, and ensure that each stakeholder understands their role in accelerating this transition. By doing so, we are not only taking responsibility to reduce emissions, but also, as I said at the beginning of the speech, securing Europe from many different angles. We will also strengthen energy independence, enhance competitiveness, and future-proof our aviation system against global uncertainty. Again, as you can see, a set of major issues taking into account the current geopolitical situation. At Eurocontrol, we see aviation transformation as key to achieving Europe's sustainability goals. For us, it's clear. I mean, change is needed. Along with operational improvements and sustainable fuels, new propulsion technologies and zero-emission aircraft will shape the future. And the Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation roadmap is a key milestone guiding this transition so that at the end of the day, we can deliver on our commitments. Let me also say a few final words about something that is key for us, for Eurocontrol. The first strategy or roadmap, if I may say, that we have launched in many, many years. It was approved by our member states last November. We have called it the Eurocontrol Trajectory 2030 strategy. And with this strategy, we can definitely say that we remain committed to supporting European operational concepts, enabling technologies, and a stronger collaboration to safely and efficiently integrate next-generation aircraft into Europe's airspace. So with this strategy, we are committed to doing our homework, to doing our part. With this, I conclude my speech. So let us use this event to move from ambition to implementation, from dialogue to action, and reaffirm our shared commitment to a resilient, sustainable, and future-ready aviation ecosystem. Thanks again, everybody, and I wish you all an insightful and productive exchange. Thank you very much, and back to you, Andrius.
Thanks very much, Raul. It's now my honour to invite Mr. Andrius Kubilius, who is, of course, the Commissioner for Defence and Space, to give us an opening remark. Mr. Commissioner, if you'd be so kind.
Well, dear Director General, dear all participants, good afternoon. And I want to start with some inspiration from history. You know, I am from Lithuania. And in Lithuania, we have two historical national heroes, two famous pilots, Steponas Darius and Stasys Girenas. In 1933, they were the first ever Lithuanians to fly across the Atlantic, more than 6,400 kilometers in about 37 hours. 600 kilometers more, by the way, than the famous crossing by Charles Lindbergh. They successfully crossed the Atlantic, but sadly crashed in what is today Poland, and both men died. But they are remembered in Lithuania because of their bravery and the spirit of adventure and innovation. That is what aviation is all about. And I think about them today because they were both soldiers in the First World War. And that makes me think of the constant connection between civil and military aviation, which was there from the very first pioneering days of flight. As you know, I am Commissioner for Defence and Space, but I am proud to be also Commissioner responsible for civil aeronautics, because we cannot defend Europe without you, and we cannot lead in space without you. Sectors are interconnected, supply lines interdependent, know-how interchange. The crossover between civilian and military aviation is massive, systemic, and historical. The very first airplanes were civilian over 120 years ago, and soon were put to military use. And the other way around. Thanks to military improvements, we can all fly quickly and safely. The Air Force was the first to use traffic control and the jet engine. We now cannot imagine travel without them. In the technology of flight, there is a constant feedback loop. Civilian innovation inevitably finds a military use, like high-frequency radio for navigation, later satellite-based navigation. And the other way around, military inventions find civilian applications. Military planes, for example, first replaced hydraulic by electronic systems. Civilian aircraft quickly followed. Our defense industry is fragmented, and very much fragmented. We have only one defense company in the global top 10. The rest is mainly American, British, and Chinese. But if you look at pure civilian aviation industry, we are a global leader. Airbus is the #1 civilian aviation company in the world in terms of sales, a true European giant. Civil aviation contributes over €1 trillion to the European economy, 15 million jobs. Most of our aviation industry is civil, over 2/3 of all activity. Companies large and small do both, civil and military, with shared facilities, common skills, and know-how. And our civilian industry produces hardware for the military, cockpit displays, surveillance systems, and flight data monitoring, and training simulators using gaming technology. Our civilian aviation industry is a resource for our defense, an engine for European competitiveness. So we must support our industry, ensure supply of critical raw materials like aluminum and titanium. Later this year, we will present an innovation strategy to help cover your needs. And we support innovation in aviation. The history of flight is one of constant innovation, from propeller to turbo engine, from flying by compass to flying by satellite, from manual to more and more automatic, autopilot, auto-landing, auto-everything. Innovation is key to the success of European industry. In Europe, we pioneered the first twin-jet wide-bodied airliner and the first fly-by-wire commercial airliner, replacing cables and hydraulics by computer controls and electronics. And I must add, originally fly-by-wire was a military application. Since 2021, we have supported aviation innovation with €850 million from European Defence Fund, including 80 million for transport, and more than 230 million for materials and components. And Horizon Europe funds civilian aviation innovation with €2 billion. So you can count on us to continue to support innovation in aviation, military, and civilian. Because to keep our global leadership, we must never stop innovating. And innovation is what you are all about. The Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation. More than 200 organizations, private and public. People from all over Europe, from every sector of aviation. From airlines to airports, to industry, to energy providers, and many more. You are all people united by one inspiring ambition: to bring about the next big aviation revolution. A revolution far more fundamental than some of the innovations I just mentioned. Just think, in 120 years, air travel has progressed from a contraption made out of canvas and wood, not for nothing called a kite, to a metal machine flying faster than the speed of sound. From flying a few hundred meters to crossing whole continents and even going to the moon and back. But in 120 years, in all that time, one thing has never changed: the fuel, fossil fuel. Like the car, the aircraft is really a child of the internal combustion engine. This has not changed in 4 or 5 generations. And you are going to change all that with aircraft that fly on electricity or hydrogen. The biggest change in aircraft design in 120 years. And the benefits are clear. No more worries about your carbon footprint when you're going flying. And as Defense Commissioner, I also see the benefits. This is great for our strategic autonomy. Last week, Fatih Birol, head of International Energy Agency, said and warned us, Europe has only 6 weeks of jet fuel left, pushing up prices, cancelling flights, putting summer holidays at risk, and the defense of Europe. This really shows how urgent and important your work is. If we go electric or hydrogen, no dependency on rogue states like Russia or Iran, no longer hostage to sudden crisis in the world. Unlike all other innovations in flight, this too will have a military application. And you know this because you produced an impressive report on this topic. Danish and United Kingdom Air Forces are already successfully testing small electric planes. Drones used in Ukraine are already battery-powered, and longer-range hybrid drones are being developed. They can switch to battery power, so they are even harder to detect. Everyone understands that in the army, operational needs are most important. Lives are at stake. And no one expects to see solar-powered fighter jets anytime soon. But we can expect to see hybrid helicopters. And in the longer run, military transport planes. If you can transport passengers, you can also transport soldiers or equipment. And the benefits are clear. Electric systems are silent by definition, less easy to detect with fewer infrared emissions. Electric aircraft will also bring about a revolution in military logistics. No need for fuel convoys that are vulnerable to attack, but hydrogen and electricity produced on the spot, near defensive lines, near front lines, bringing complete tactical independence. The reason why we are here today is that today you present a roadmap towards revolution in the sky that is clear and ambitious. 20,000 hybrid, electric or hydrogen planes by 2050. What's important about this roadmap? You have learned the lessons of history. This is not only a technological revolution, but an infrastructure revolution. At the start of combustion revolution, when the very first cars started to drive, there were no petrol stations. Where did you go to get petrol? To buy petrol, you had to go to a pharmacy. And if we look at electric cars, you are not going to buy one if there are not enough charging stations. And companies are not going to build charging stations if there are not enough electric cars. Your roadmap prevents this chicken and egg problem. You show how much energy we need, how to get our airports ready, how to ensure certification and standards, how to prepare our airspace to new cruise speeds and flight levels, how to help operators integrate these aircraft into their fleet. In short, how to help the entire sector to say goodbye to fossil and hello to electric and hydro. You can count on our full support in this important mission. You have the European Union behind you. What you are doing is important, exciting, and inspiring. This is only the start. Our journey is about to begin. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is your Commissioner speaking. Fasten your seatbelts and get ready for takeoff. I wish you a very successful green flight.
Mr. Commissioner, could I ask you to stay here? Can I ask all of the speakers on the two roundtables if they'd like to join us up here now for a group photo? And I think, Raul, you should be with us as well, of course. So if you'd like to come on up and join in a group photo. I'll stand at the back. But we need 2 rows, I think, for 12 people or 13. So if someone would like to come across into the front, maybe, and if we could get someone with a small football, for example, to sit at the very front, that would be very helpful, cross-legged.
Then I will have the answers all.
Yeah, well, oh, here we go. We're going to have a height off. We're going to have a height off. Stand up straight.
I'll be in front of you.
There we go. Come back here.
I don't understand. Sorry.
There we go. There we go. Here we go.
Oh, sorry.
Don't take it personally.
That's much better.
Oh, very good. Oh, very good point. Of course. Are we good? Thank you. You won't be shocked to learn that the Commissioner has to go to Parliament. We are having not one but two wars at the moment, so has to leave us at this point, but I'd like to thank him again for his excellent presentation. Thanks, and Raul as well. Ciao. So the next item on our agenda is for a quick overview and summary of the work plan. Did I call it a work plan? Of the roadmap, I beg your pardon. And I'd like to ask Jean-Pierre Lentz if he'd be so kind as to do a presentation for us to just introduce the roadmap more formally for everybody, both here and on the live stream. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, good afternoon, everybody. I mean, yeah, I will try to manage this. Thank you. Yeah, I want to give you a quick overview, but again, I apologize for those in the room because we already discussed that this morning, but it is more at the attention of the people online. So as we have heard, indeed, adapting air transport to electric and hydrogen propulsion would require decision and action by a very different and wide range of private and public sector. And these actions are mainly interdependent, and they call, therefore, for a coordinated effort. So it is to take up this challenge that the Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation has produced the roadmap, which is published today. So the roadmap was built on the input of the AZEA members, which are by today more than 210 members, as mentioned before, really representing the entire ecosystem. All the constituencies have been involved in these exercises. The roadmap presents a concrete plan. This is not the slide eventually, if you can go. Yeah, indeed. Sorry, my mistake. So the roadmap presents a concrete plan to achieve this deployment of electric, battery electric, hybrid, and hydrogen-powered aircraft. The roadmap proposes first quantified objectives to the entire ecosystem, and from these objectives, it derives the necessary enablers. And if you read the roadmap in details, as I would really engage you to do, you will see that for each enabler, the list of concrete actions have been derived addressing all the different actors, industry, public authorities, and financing organizations. And at the end of the roadmap, you will also see high-level recommendation for this set of actors. The roadmap for the deployment of electric and hydrogen-powered flights in Europe makes this objective a realistic goal, something that may look forward and difficult to attain has now a clear path towards its deployment. In addition, the roadmap gathering the input from so many stakeholders really demonstrate the aviation sector, the European aviation sector commitment and capability to achieve this goal. The roadmap has been designed as a tool to raise awareness that electric and hydrogen flight are coming now and not in 10 or 30 years. It helps to public and private stakeholders involved in their deployment to identify their role and their responsibility in this challenge. And it should also help them to guide them on their own decision-making process on the action they need to undertake. So as I mentioned, the roadmap, to be concrete, really builds on a clear and quantified objective, which is expressed in the number of aircraft that will enter into service for the three technologies, hybrid, battery electric, and fuel cell hydrogen, in 5 market segments: general aviation, regional aviation, regional air mobility, business aviation, and medium range. This objective has been defined and assessed by the aircraft manufacturer, taking into account on one side the flight that can be operated by those aircraft on the basis of their performances in the flight which are forecasted by Eurocontrol, the IFR flight forecasted by the Eurocontrol, but also it includes, especially on the lower market segment, a huge number of new air mobility offers that we expect to be generated by this new green technology, where today it would not be possible to fly or justify to fly. Tomorrow, this aircraft should help to operate these shorter routes. On that basis, the alliances then identify or estimated where those aircraft could fly in Europe in order to identify more precisely the number of airports which needs to be prepared, the quantity of electricity and hydrogen required, and the number of flights to be operated. And you can see on the slide high-level figure of this. You will find many more details inside the roadmap. As I said, from this objective, the alliances identify for what it is called in the roadmap the pillars of the ecosystem, so aircraft, energy, aerodromes, certification, airspace integration, and operators, the high-level enablers that would be necessary to have. For instance, for manufacturers, obviously you need CapEx investment for production, MRO, also for retrofitting, because some of these aircraft, at least at first, may be retrofitted aircraft. But CapEx is not enough. You need also competency for this operation. You need a resilient supply chain, including critical technology, and you need a market. And for each of these enablers, then the roadmap provides concrete actions. And as I said, at the end, we'll also find high-level recommendations for public authorities, industry, and financing organizations. If I just mention the one on public authorities, which cover both the EU, the member states, and the regions, focus is put on the need for strategies at European level, but also at member state level, political support, alignment of the energy policies to aviation needs. I think this is something we also discussed this morning in the General Assembly of the Alliance. Very, very important. Today, unfortunately, we may see that still now in many national policies, aviation has, let's say, low profile, and we need to change that if we want to have the energy required to fly these aircraft. Incentive and funding schemes and test arena, which is an important tool that we want to develop in order to test on real operation these new aircraft. So that was really, in a nutshell, a very quick overview of the roadmap. As I said, the purpose was more to engage you to read, that to provide some already in-depth information. The roadmap is from a few minutes ago online on the Commission AZEA website. You can find it scanning this QR code, or you will find it on the AZEA website of the Commission. So again, I encourage you, everybody, not only to read it yourself, to use it for informing your own decision, but also to promote or challenge across the ecosystem towards the industry and policymakers and financing organizations. Thank you very much, and good luck for the continuation of the challenge.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre. He asked me to say, and I realised I forgot to do it, that he wasn't speaking on behalf of the Commission, but speaking on behalf of AZEA itself in giving that presentation, although I think their goals are somewhat aligned, at least I hope they do. Our next speaker will be beaming into us by video, and that is a video message from the Director General of EASA, Mr. Florent Guillemets. And so if we could roll the tape on that, I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be part of this event, marking the formal publication of the AZEA roadmap. This is a true milestone on our shared journey towards net zero emission in aviation. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there with you in person today. Cooperation among the different actors in the aviation ecosystem is essential in this immense task. This roadmap is valuable as it brings together the action of over 200 organizations. EASA, as one of these organizations, has been actively contributing to AZEA over the last 4 years and has played a part in shaping its vision and roadmap. As Europe's aviation safety agency, our role is to ensure that aviation remains safe, even in the face of so much changes, while also fostering progress towards the AZEA objectives. I would like to share some examples of EASA's current activities to enable zero-emission aviation. Firstly, we are actively engaged in the certification of new propulsion technologies. The Andrius engine from Safran is a success story here. The Andrius 100 was the first engine certified under the world's first special conditions for electric and/or hybrid propulsion systems developed by EASA. We have also built relationships with several startups and SMEs working on zero-emission aviation through our innovative service concept. This allows us to partner with innovators early to increase the chances of a smooth progression to eventual certification. In this context, we are also working closely with the Clean Aviation Joint Undertaking. Secondly, the agency is supporting the aviation ecosystem in developing the global standards and policies that will be needed for the deployment of electric, hybrid, and hydrogen-powered flights. In Europe alone, adapting the regulatory framework to allow the deployment of hybrid, electric, and hydrogen flights already entails close cooperation with the national aviation authorities in the member states. But we need to think global to make zero-emission aviation a reality. We need to cooperate with ICAO and with other aviation authorities, such as the FAA, CAA UK, TCCA, and ANAC. And we need to work with standards development organizations such as Eurocontrol and ASTM to ensure our regulatory framework is based on industry standard and it is objective-based to the extent possible and therefore flexible to adapt to the evolution of technologies. Thirdly, cooperation is key for the sharing of learnings amongst authorities with the industry. In this stage of development of zero-emission aviation, cooperation must prevail over competition, as shared learnings and best practices will be essential to move forward. As often in the past, we see that general aviation is leading the way in innovation and developing solutions from which we can learn for other parts of the industry. Remarkable progress has been made in the area of battery electric and hybrid propulsion technology for small aircraft, the CS-23. We are looking forward to supporting development for other aircraft categories, such as the large commercial aircraft under CS-25, and with new propulsion technologies such as hydrogen. So where do we go from here? While we have all the key actions on our radar, we still need to address the question of how we can accelerate certification and operations of aircraft with innovative propulsion technologies and how to adapt regulations to support innovation while still maintaining safety and harmonizing internationally. One concrete way to achieve this will be through test arenas, in which we can try out new technologies and their operations in a real-life or close to real-life operational environment. We refer to this concept as regulatory sandboxes. This can bring real learnings more quickly and so create a faster path for the development of business cases and launching of real-life operations. What we visualize are cross-border centers of excellence where national authorities, EASA, and industry can come together to facilitate the entry into service and operations of new aircraft. Such sandboxes will be instrumental in establishing a performance-based and lean regulatory framework that will support the coordinated deployment of the related infrastructure and services. The US, UK, and Norway, by the way, are already experimenting with sandboxes and also offer financial support for certain innovative projects. Our industry would like to see similar programs here in the EU. It is clear also that we need to have the right skill set in place across the whole aviation community so we can develop and implement new propulsion technologies and design the flight operations of new aircraft with safety in mind. In closing, I would like to reiterate the importance of the AZEA goals. Aviation must stay focused on achieving sustainability. The public expects it, the planet needs it. Together and only together we can make aviation truly sustainable.
Well, thank you very much for all of that. I hope you didn't notice that during that presentation, through the mystery of theatre, we have converted this stage now to a place for a round table. Unfortunately, we didn't get a round table, but we are going to have a round table nevertheless. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, where you see that I am an equal opportunity offender when it comes to mispronouncing people's names. Our first panel is focused more on the aircraft and the equipment themselves. The names are up there. You can see how badly I'm going to do it. Mr. David Sola, Mr. Glenn Llewellyn, Mr. Jeremy Cossard, Mr. Ivo van Dartel and Mr. Kyle Martin, if you'd be so kind as to come up. I do note there's a step on this side, if that is a big leap. I don't care where you sit. On a seat, I think. I'd take a seat if I were you. Here we go. Thanks very much, and thanks for coming and making the time to be here. Let me start, perhaps, if I can, Glenn, with you. Airbus made a big noise a while ago about 2035 and the 2035, what was it called? Destination 2050. By 2035, we were going to have hydrogen aircraft. That timeline has moved, I think it's polite to say, to the right. But how is it going? What is the state of play for the moment?
Sure. So maybe a couple of words about why exactly that's moved, because I think it's important, especially in the context of what we're discussing here, to understand that. What we saw when we were looking first at the launch of the Zero-E project at Airbus was certainly a huge motivation.
Zero-E, that's how I've
Zero-E.
Zero-E.
We could see a huge dynamic around the renewable energy, the hydrogen ecosystem, and I think everybody has seen that over the last few years. The pace of change, especially in Europe, has reduced compared to what we were initially anticipating. And maybe just to put that in numbers and maybe strike a contrast, today in China there are 30,000 hydrogen trucks and buses in operation. In Europe there are 500 hydrogen trucks and buses in operation.
As many as that? I wouldn't have been surprised if you said zero.
So 30,000 hydrogen trucks and buses in operation today in China. And while we have certainly a huge ambition in Europe, you can see based on those very telling numbers that when it comes to the implementation of the ambition, we're to a certain extent a little bit slow. And the technology, which for sure I think all of us will be very passionate about, the technology that exists in China is probably, arguably, maybe not even as good as the technology in fuel cells, in hydrogen storage that exists in Europe. So it's not been a technology problem, it's a wider ecosystem problem. And there's been a lot of discussion today about that. When we look at the AZEA circle behind us, you can see that it's recognized that there's a large ecosystem which needs to be deployed, and that's one of the big benefits of this Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation, that we start to tackle the multiple elements which need to come together in order for hydrogen in aviation, for electric aircraft in aviation to happen.
Are the two different, hydrogen and electric aircraft? I mean, is it the same thing? And obviously I'd like you to name names and actually say whose fault it is that we're behind, but I guess you're not going to do that.
So in In my mind, there's very little difference between a hydrogen aircraft, a hydrogen fuel cell powered aircraft, and a fully electric battery powered aircraft. The only difference is that you're using hydrogen stored in a tank through fuel cells to provide your electricity instead of a chemical reaction inside a battery to provide the electricity. So the result is more or less the same. You're flying fully electric with electric motors, whether it's a fully electric battery-powered aircraft or a fully electric fuel cell hydrogen-powered aircraft. The result is essentially the same.
But hydrogen aircraft, I'm showing off the absolute shallowness of my knowledge here, but hydrogen aircraft, one assumes, way less than battery aircraft, is that right?
Yes, if you compare for a given payload and a given mission, a hydrogen-powered aircraft and a battery-powered aircraft, in I think most cases, if not all cases, the hydrogen fuel cell-powered aircraft will have a lower mass.
So putting that round the other way, the range for hydrogen aircraft will be greater or longer.
Exactly, yes,
right.
Exactly.
And yet one of the things we're seeing, and what was very clear this morning, what's very clear in the roadmap, is that we're going to start with small aeroplanes. No disrespect to your members, Carl. We're going to start with small aircraft. And you, Airbus, the medium-haul aircraft, the 250-seater, are very much the end point of this particular roadmap. Does that strike you as the right way to go, or why aren't we doing everything at the same time?
So I think it's absolutely great that there's so many initiatives, especially in Europe, on the smaller aircraft. And I agree with what was said earlier, that this can help develop the ecosystem, develop some of the technologies that are necessary to support the larger aircraft development. So I think in our world, I would see it as complementary, and we shouldn't see it as somehow competing with each other. I think they're as a European, I think we need all of this to progress.
But the infrastructure for, again, showing off my ignorance, the infrastructure for hydrogen must surely be different at the airport level to the infrastructure for a battery-powered aeroplane.
Probably in a lot of cases, it's quite different. There are some cases where it can be extremely similar. In fact, you can plug, in some cases already, an electrolyzer into an electrical charger and use the electricity from the electric charger to power an electrolyzer to create hydrogen. But they're fairly minor cases. I think in the majority of cases, the infrastructure is different. And hydrogen is much more like jet fuel in terms of its logistics. You can transport it in a truck, you can ship it in a container, you can bring the container and locate it at the airfield or airport, certainly for smaller scale operations. So in that sense, it's quite different than an electric charging infrastructure.
You mentioned that the Chinese have 50,000, or was it 500,000?
30,000
30,000
trucks. And
I was close. 30,000 hydrogen-powered buses and trucks. Why are they ahead of us? Is that the competition? Is that who we're trying to emulate or overtake?
I would say that the reason they're ahead is because of the regulatory framework that they've built around, in this case, trucking. And what I would say is that we need to make sure that when it comes to aviation, that Europe is the one ahead in developing the regulatory ecosystem, the incentives, etc., for all of us here to be bringing these kind of zero-emission technologies into aviation. Because otherwise, what we will see is that while somebody else develops that ecosystem, it creates commercialization, it creates additional investment, and then the technology starts to get better. Right now, we're in my view, a fantastic situation in Europe where we've got technologies which are the best in the world. And we need to keep it like that, but we can only keep it like that if we get quickly into the commercialization phase. If somebody else or some other region gets into the commercialization phase and then starts to be able to inject significantly higher amounts of investment into those industries, then that technology will be what benefits from the investment, and we'll find ourselves overtaken.
I'm coming to you at the end, David, because clearly this is going to be a fairly important part. But perhaps turning, if I may, to Jeremy and Ivo. Is it the same regulatory issues that Glenn's highlighted that you are worried about? Oh, sorry, let me rephrase it. Are you worried about the regulatory process and those sorts of things?
And in our case, not at all.
So Glenn's just whinging about nothing.
No, it's the different regulatory framework that you need for each use case. So I think one thing we can maybe remind ourselves is the leadership that Europe has in aviation safety and certification. I think EASA is now the gold standard for aviation safety and certification globally. And EASA certified an electric aircraft in 2020. And obviously there were other companies with different type of air vehicles, but battery electric powered, that pushed a lot of rulemaking. So
why isn't the sky black with electric aircraft already?
That's a good question.
Okay, I'll ask it again.
Because the funds have not been allocated to it as such.
Money.
But if I may refer, because Glenn, you took out trucks and buses. In China, there's, I think, yearly sales, maybe people can fact check the exact number. I think there's like 1 or 2 million electric trucks being sold each year. So there's other industries who have driven the underlying technological push.
So sorry to come back to that just for that.
Yeah.
1 or 2 million electric trucks, but 30,000 hydrogen trucks. Just a distinction there. Is that right?
Well, I don't know the hydrogen numbers, but
well, let's take Glenn at his word.
I believe him. No, the thing is, in the end of the day, it depends. There's two things. There's performance, let's say in our case, range, where battery are clearly limited. You cannot fly very far with a battery. And there's unit economics. And in other industries, we've seen that electrification always beats economics because of thermodynamics. You have less conversion of energy. It's always cheaper. So we see in passenger cars, we see it in electric vehicles. There are now electric trucks who can carry 40 tons of cargo. They have a 700-kilometer range, and the limiting factor is the regulatory limit of how long a driver can sit in the truck. And that's when they conveniently then charge and continue the journey. So if you translate it to aviation, clearly there's a limit to what you can do. We fit in that lower end. It's a general aviation platform. We believe we can fly 400 kilometers because that's what batteries allow you to do. Mm-hmm. And clearly if you go further, you need another type of technology. But whatever you can fly electric, you can certify because EASA has prepared the rulemaking. You have the underlying technology, which was paid for by other industries, and thirdly, it will be the cheapest way to travel.
Right. So what is the situation at Vaeridion, and where are you in this development line?
So we are wrapping up preliminary design, but we have focused a lot on the underlying battery technology. As Glenn pointed out, it's the storage is an important factor. Whether it's if you have hydrogen on your plane, you need to focus how you store that. In our case, is how do we integrate batteries in an aeroplane, and how do you certify that? So we have concluded 2 pre-application contracts with EASA to make sure we understand the rulemaking, we understand the means of compliance. Can you actually certify this aircraft? It's not only about demonstrating that you could fly it, it's about can you certify it and it will be at least as safe or better than what you had before. And we have started industrialization of the battery manufacturing, because airworthy batteries is not a part you can go out and buy on the market. So we've done that first. Now we are in the process of raising more funds so we can build the first integrated electric aircraft. The aircraft itself will be rather conventional, but the underlying battery technology is being developed by ourselves, and we will aim to fly a battery on a flying testbed, so not our aircraft yet, during this year, to de-risk the first flight of the full-size aircraft in the next 100 weeks.
How big will the full-sized aircraft be? How many seats are we talking?
So our category of aircraft is for up to 9 passengers. So it's indeed, so that explains you have different type of solutions for different type of applications.
Horses for courses, of course. What's the situation then, if I can turn to you, Jeremy, at Aero? Does that all ring true, everything you've heard?
Yeah, maybe a thing that is important to mention in that we are not enough to do what we are doing, because at the end of the day, if you look at in Europe, what the amount of companies working with close to certification capabilities, there is Vaeridion, there is Bristol H55 groups, and there is us. Maybe you can mention Diamond, but they are fully owned by Chinese. So 3 companies in Europe. It's not enough at all. And I think the other thing that is important that the ecosystem failed yet to understand how the small aircraft manufacturers are paving the way. I mean, for real. Yet, if you look about the big aircraft manufacturer in Europe, overall, they are not investing into the smaller aircraft manufacturers. So it's for us, but it's also for Vaeridion and for all the other one. So I think this is very, very, very big problem. And this can be very dangerous for us. And then where we are, well, as for certification stands, we have to understand that we are in a race for the fastest time to market. The idea is to be sure that when we say that it will be the entry into service, it will be roughly the good timing, and that you have enough resources to make it through. Means that you need to have the right people, you need to have the right agreements, so the design organization approval, the production organization approval, a type certificate for your product means that you need to have all the regulatory framework in place, which is the case, basically. But you need also a factory. Right. And then the factory takes...
And none of that is free.
Sorry?
None of that is free.
No, none of them is free, and you need to be sure that the build-up of the company overall is matching the different targets, because otherwise, if you have a very good product but no factory, then the impact is zero. Yeah. On the other hand, if you think about having a very beautiful factory but not a certified product, or something that you're missing to have the right certification path because no regulation, or the we like to talk about the TRL for the maturity, but this is for the components. At the end of the day, for an industrial player, it's the certification readiness level, the CRL, which is basically defining the time to market for your product. And it's all about making through all of that and be sure that the product you are developing is at the right level of maturity for the Technobricks.
And time to market, am I not right that you are actually looking towards, you've almost got a time specified for market already for your product, haven't you?
Yeah, if I'm talking only about the low carbon emission plane or zero emission, we're having a 2-seater electric airplane that flew in December 2024, and we aim at having a certification late 2027 because we're missing several additional prototypes to go to the certification configuration. And also to have the operational reliability means that we need to fly significant amount of flight hour before we can first certify, but mainly deliver to the customer with the right maturity at operation level.
It's that pesky 10 to the -9 thing you've got to get over.
Yeah, but in terms of flight hour, I believe that for our 2-seater aerobatic capable airplane, we need a minimum to 500 to 1,000 flight hour before we deliver to the real customer. I mean, the one paying the full price of the plane, and we'll do operation out of it. And as for the regional airplane, we start now to build the first big element, the long lead item, and we believe that we'll be capable of flying late 2027. Late 2027,
which is next year, frankly. Yeah. I mean, that's literally around the corner, isn't it?
It is.
Do you agree with that, Emma?
Yeah, actually, I think Aura and ourselves, we like to cooperate a lot. I think the name of the game in Europe is we cooperate, and indeed, maybe the competition is elsewhere in the world. But actually, it's quite interesting that I think for Aura, they have now some recent good news in some announcement, but the main people funding this from the beginning are private investors. So I was happy to hear the commissioner say that an electric military transport aircraft would create tactical independence, because that's what you see in America. A lot of these innovative companies receive early defense contracts just to show something, and then we'll figure out what we can do with it.
If only Airbus had that benefit over the years.
And let's not get into that. But indeed, I would say currently we are limited by capital available. We are, for example, each time we want to contract a new phase with a supplier, obviously you'll buy a lot of things. You have to wait for the next funding to become available, and then you can go ahead. And that brings me to the point of capital allocation. I think we have wonderful instruments in Europe, but maybe it could be allocated slightly differently. So we have the new multi-year framework. I never can understand if it's MMF or MFF. The other one is the tanker program. Where indeed, I think also in the roadmap, there's been some mentioning of not only fund the early research phase, but go all the way up to deployment and industrialization, which would help new innovative parties to accelerate, surely.
Now, I was absolutely fascinated, Jeremy, that you said that you think 3 OEMs, for want of a better expression, 3 is not enough. I mean, that's not Airbus's position, is it? Airbus gets on pretty well with only the 2 of you in the big commercial airframe. Bringing you in, Carl, do you want more members to come and join your association and bolster that number, or do you think 3 is a good number?
I don't think I get a salary with 3 members, so I'm very open
3
to having more.
in this space only, I mean, yes.
No. We have, GAMA has 140 members today, and about 40 to 50 of those are playing in this space.
And how many of those are European?
Of the new technologies, EVA's one, so good. Aura, soon, I hope. Yeah, when with H55, we also have supply chain as well. So you've got Safran on the engine side, H55, which someone mentioned earlier on the battery side, they're all members too. So there's a number of players. It's not, the airframe itself is one thing, but you need the propulsion systems, the fuel systems, the electronics, the avionics and everything of the aircraft. So building all that together is all part of the ecosystem, because you can't just have an electric motor. You need to build the entire aircraft around it, which creates a whole supply chain around it, which is what we work on.
Right. And that supply chain issue, the last 3 years in aviation has been a scream of pain concerning supply chains generally. Do you see a similar story in this new technology area?
I think we're not seeing it yet in this area because they're not really ramping up in production yet. So EVA and Aura and everyone else need to certify the product first, then they'll be into production. And I hope by that time the supply chains will have resolved themselves. But it's also worth noting the cause of a lot of today's supply chain issues, and we do our reports every 3 months for the global manufacturers, a lot of it relates to turbine engines. Turbine engines, I used to work for Rolls-Royce. You've got very complicated metallurgy, very exotic materials, forgings, castings, all very limited supply chains.
Yeah.
You don't actually have those same problems to the same extent with an electric motor. It's a much simpler piece of machinery. You do need some complex minerals, maybe for the battery, cobalt and so on, but you're not doing a very complex turbine blade casting facility with a very limited supply chain. So I think it'll be a different set of problems, maybe carbon composite structures or maybe battery materials, but it won't be the same kind of supply chain issues we've had on the turbine market for the last 5 years.
Interesting. But nevertheless, each of these components, not just the airframe, not just the engine, will need to be certified. So David, finally getting to you. No, I mean, I'm really heartbroken. I was expecting everyone to say the real problem's EASA. You know, I thought, well, that's an easy session for me. What's EASA doing to meet all of this?
Well, actually, we are trying to support as much as we can. If I may remember a few facts, we have certified the first electrical aircraft. It was 2018. We have certified the first electrical engine fairly recently, last year. We have also developed the first eVTOL entire regulatory framework and things like that. Now, if you look at what we've done compared to implementation in the field, I think there is a big gap in Europe. And I'm not sure it's only the certification which is a bottleneck, but aviation needs a sustained, strong political will to make it happen. It's happening in China. They have defined the low altitude economy. It's a 15 to 20 years vision, and they are working on it like mad. And the funding is not coming from the sky, you know. It's a state funding, completely targeted, because aviation is a long lead industry. It's also a heavy funding industry. Developing an aircraft is not the matter of a couple of millions, but a couple of billions. And if you are in an innovative framework, you multiply the figure. And so that's where Europe is falling short. We are developing all the technology. We are really at the forefront in university, first, you know, kind of scale technology, fuel cells, stuff like that.
But at the end of the day, we are unable to scale up these technologies, or they are bought by other states. The first electrical aircraft was a European one. It has been purchased by a US company. So at the end of the day, we have to find, to ask the right questions. Are we putting on the table the amount of effort compared to the ambition we have? That's really something. I give you another figure. EASA, in the certification directorate, it's around 250 people. You take the FAA, it's around 2,500 people, 1 to 10, for the same kind of scope. Obviously, when you are in a global industry like we are today, smart is good, but at some point, workforce matter.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day where we are. China is the same kind of scale, and they are growing very fast. They have also another advantage. They have their own market that can sustain the demand. In Europe, we don't have this luxury, so we must be global. We must tackle them. We must be forefront on that, and we must convince 27 countries to work together. That's the challenges we are facing today. Aviation has been leading because Europe united around a certain piece of companies that joined together. If we are not doing that at some point in time, we are not going to succeed. The Chinese are going so fast. When I have the luxury to be able to speak with a number of companies worldwide, and when I see that a Chinese company needs 6 months to put a 7.7-ton electrical eVTOL aircraft in the air in 6 months, while it takes 3 years in Europe, at best, I'm really asking myself, are we on the right track? Are we competing in the same league? And that's really what we are, sorry to say, but what Europe is at stake,
Are we on the right track? Are we competing in the same market?
I think the market is the same, but the conditions in the market are very different. David mentioned the Chinese, but in the US it's also different as well, not just the number of people at FAA, but it's also a massive private venture capital with much higher appetite for risk. So in the US, it's not surprising that a startup aviation company can raise $2, $3, $5 billion. I think Ivor and Jeremy would be praying to the gods for that kind of investment, because you just can't get it in Europe. Private equity, private finance, taking risky bets on startup companies is not really part of our financial culture here. That's what's holding us back.
Part of our DNA.
But not all hope is lost. It's also.
God.
I mean,
I was getting a bit depressed.
This is one of my favorite topics. I like to say we're from the EASA Valley. It's much more interesting than the Silicon Valley. It's also a lot of displacement and no horsepower. You know what a junior engineer makes in San Francisco? Starting salary, 500K. So you need to divide maybe by 10 those numbers, and then you have a similar budget, what you can do in Europe. Also, I would say that our market isn't that small either, especially from looked through our lens. In Germany, we have more airports than China.
Yeah.
In short-haul trips, in Europe, we have 229 million passengers per year. In America, on that same sector, only 80 million. So I think one of the things is maybe psychologically we should be a bit more, self-positive. Yeah. If I may quote one famous European leader, be not afraid. It's more actual than ever. And second, it's not only about giving handouts. I think it's also about creating market conditions. Because what is smart in America? If you get a government contract, the private markets will follow because demand is being created. We have a long history of research grants, which has a certain logic and it is a long-term play. But if you would have a government contract, and one of my favorite examples is Norway with the ferries. They electrified the ferries and the government paid for the R&D. And then they have royalties on each electric ferry that is being sold somewhere else. We could do a lot smarter things without needing more money. I do agree, EASA needs a few more colleagues. Give more money to EASA for sure. But we can really be the global winner if we make a few adjustments.
Give more money to... Jeremy, I can only imagine you agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. For going faster, we need to have enough knowledgeable people in certification, and but also we need more people giving a try. Because of course the funding is a link between the availability of the fund and the opportunities associated to that, but also the amount of people that are trying. How many people are going out of big companies to give a try? Ivor, myself, maybe 5 or 6 people in Europe out of 500 million people. So let's face the reality. Of course, certification have to adapt, funding have to adapt, countries have to adapt, Europe have to adapt. But at the end of the day, I think we're missing the players.
So we're missing
the players, the people giving a try,
yeah.
Because targeting the moonshot for Airbus for 2050, 60, whatever, with the zero-emission planes or before, whatever, it's something. But Airbus and Boeing are not in the same league than the rest of the world. So, and it's good for them. But unfortunately, it will be not sufficient. So what's happened to all the rest? What are our real ambitions for regional aviation? For general aviation overall? We are just not enough. So, of course, the 10 times factor is something that is hurtful for us because, unfortunately, we are not 10 times smarter. So, for sure, this is something. But apart from that, the thing is crazy that we're having the same problem in the US and we're having in Europe. Diamond Aircraft was a beautiful company, Chinese. Cirrus Aircraft, still very, very beautiful company, Chinese. It's American originally. So we're having something that is kind of a tsunami on one hand, because they understood how important it is to get position on the small stuff, the Chinese, and then there is the rest of the world. So let's try to figure out how we can move from statements to actual fact. The amount of people that are having pre-application contract or certification of low carbon airplane or fully or zero emission are quite low at the end. I mean, I'm talking about certification. So yeah, I think this is the main problem we're having. So it's probably a problem of ambition first. And we have a huge gap to bridge, and sorry to say that, between the amount of people talking in the conferences worldwide. When you think about the amount of conferences having every year in Europe only about decarbonization, low carbon, innovation, blah, 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 plenty. It can be our full-time jobs forever. And in the same time, when you look about how many people are dealing with the EASA, for example, because CRL related, it's at some point in time, it's a very good matrix for maturity. Well, not that much.
David?
Yeah, if I may rebound on that, indeed, when you look at what's going in the US and what's going in China, there is a bunch of an ecosystem of booming companies. And you know what? Maybe 1 out of 30 will succeed. But that's behind the whole supply chain that is being built, because the supply chain is providing, you know, some key elements to these 30 companies. One will make a champion. And that's what we are missing. You know, you need a critical mass to make the whole ecosystem grow in Europe, and not purchasing things in China like the cells, you know, because that's the only way you can have some today, or very few are allocated outside. We need this momentum. We need this ecosystem to make things happening. And failing is not a bad thing, you know. No. That's indeed in Europe we have this feeling. But when I see what's going on elsewhere, you know, you fail, you rebound, or you merge, or you do. You know, there is some ways to get over that, and we are too much afraid to fail in Europe, you know. And that's something which is very detrimental to the entire ecosystem. I remind, you know, if you look at aviation, how many crashes occurred to make it happen today, you would be scared. You know, when I'm discussing sometimes with authorities to get a permit to fly, and I say an unmanned aircraft, and they are making, you know, incredible stories of stuff. Say, guys, you know what? There is nobody on board. Yeah. If it crashes, it crashes. You know, so what? It's economical. It's painful, but you know, we will learn probably better than flying unevenly for a few hours. Go for it. And we are too shy about it. So what we are trying to do, you know, we have released a certification memo on flight testing, on innovations. We are trying to do sandboxes, but the risk appetite, not only as industrial authority or the entire ecosystem, is so low that it's blocking everybody. We need to revert back to, okay, I will allow a bit more risks, because these things first will start small. And you know, you have some crashes that happen in flight testing, and that's fine. It occurs in the US, it occurred in China, in France and Germany and the like. We are very much afraid of that for whatever reason. we need to go back a bit to this mode. Innovation is something that needs to, be a step by step, and sometimes you fail, you rebound, and you get better out of it.
So Glenn, you heard it here first. EASA wants you to crash.
Yeah, I don't think that's
small
what they
first,
would say.
small.
But I think the point about needing these smaller players, the importance of those in the overall ecosystem, I really agree with, and I think the innovation culture in Europe is something that we should step back and try and understand better and figure out how for aviation we can improve things. On the Airbus side, we've certainly, when we see technology which is of interest for larger commercial applications, we have taken that risk in some cases with investments. We've invested through Airbus Ventures in universal hydrogen. We've invested also in Zero-Avia. These are companies that have been developing technologies which we see as scalable into the domain that we have our primary interests in. And we continue to look for collaborations in that small aircraft space, and fully agree with the need to keep that ecosystem, that part of the ecosystem, dynamic.
Yeah, I think one very good example is the thing that has been done by our friend at Safran, because they are working on the electric engine. That is something mandatory to have a certified electric engine for our airplane first, but it's also helping to develop some component for the bigger aircraft part of RISE project or whatever. They will talk better than me about their own roadmap. But the thing is, at the end of the day, every flight hour we'll do on the electric engine from Safran, being as flight test program or then certified within the operations, means improving the reliability, the understanding about what is the way through. And this is one of a very clear example about the connection between smaller airplane and bigger one, because at the end of the day, some of the components, if you think about hybridization, you will need anyhow, depending on the size of the plane, turbine or internal combustion engine. You will need cables, you will need high voltage, you will need batteries, you will need protection, and you can put it in one way. It can be our 19-seat hybrid, serial hybrid plane, but taking in the other one, it can be RISE, embedded into an Airbus product. So I think one of the things, the hydrogen is one thing, probably the thing that can be accelerated faster in terms of collaboration is for hybridization. Because I think we don't have a huge amount of collaboration with a bigger aircraft manufacturer, including Airbus. Not saying that we don't have any relation, we do have it for a while. But still, I think we can accelerate because it's the same component.
You are based in Toulouse, after all, aren't you?
We're still based in Toulouse.
Indeed. Just down the road.
Yeah, no, it's indeed a very important point from Jeremy, is that what you can reuse in other architectures. So just imagine if you are able to make bricks, you can build small or big houses with the same brick. You just need more of them. And also from a certification lens, if you can demonstrate the 10 to the minus 8, which is enough maybe for a smaller GA project, you can get to 10 to the minus 9 by combining a number of redundant solutions of the same. So this is what we're also aiming at. So you cannot imagine, I mean, I like to talk about airplanes, but there's lots of stuff in there that, you know, it's a lot of electrical engineering and electrotechnical things, switches, connectors that have to react at the speed of light that you will need, whether it's a small general aviation aircraft or a large hybrid electric regional aircraft or whatnot. But the fact of the matter is these things are being developed in the small companies because we define the need for our initial project first. We have to go through the process with the EASA for certification, and there could be a lot more cross-fertilization with the bigger projects indeed.
David, you want to?
Yes,
sorry, and then
one other aspect first, I know it must be a very much collaborative approach, not only the aircraft, but the aircraft needs infrastructure on the ground right now. And what we are missing is the flights. You know, we have aircraft on paper, others are flying. In the US, if you are looking at the number of electric aircraft prototype flying, they are logging a huge number of hours. On China, it's even another scale, where at least, you know, one OEM, he has logged 20,000 flight hours only on electrical aircraft. Flights, But what it means that they are landing, they are recharging, they are learning, they are looking at the infrastructure aspects. We are missing this flight. We are really, really missing these flights, and at scale, you know, not only one company flying, you know, 2-hour flights, 2 hours, sorry, 3 times 45 minutes today. We need companies that are flying every day electrical flights to learn, because, you know, simulations are good, studies are good, but at the end of the day, the judge of peace is the flight. And that's what we are missing today.
Yeah, and maybe coming back to AZEA, this Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation, I mean, the idea here is to create the market. And, you know, we've been talking about technology, and there are lots of interesting and exciting dimensions to all of this. But I agree with what Ivor said earlier. The most important thing is to have a market. That's what ultimately creates the flights. It's what ultimately allows the investment, whether it's from companies like Airbus or investors in companies like Aero or Vaeridion. We need the market, and the Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation, it's about trying to solve that complex issue of market, at least in Europe. And I would say, you know, we know that the technologies are there. There are, like David said, there are electric aircraft already flying today. Let's call them generation 1, and we will come up with generation 2, generation 3 for fuel cells, and it will get just better and better. But those technologies, they're already existing. The only thing that's stopping or slowing down the next phase, it's the market. It's creating the conditions to allow these aircraft to be investable, to allow these aircraft to start doing significant flight testing programs, to start doing test arenas with real life operations to allow certification. And I think it's really important that that continues to get tackled in the context of Europe, where we have this huge ambition to create zero-emission aviation. We have the technology, we have the companies, maybe we would all like to have more, but we have it in our hands now to try and influence the next step to make it really happen in at least our home territory.
Thank you for raising that, because I was about to come to you, Kyle, and ask, we're talking as if our market is only Europe. Is our market, surely, please tell me, our market is outside of Europe as well?
I think it has to be. I think
well, indeed.
At least for my members, the general aviation market, 70% of it's North America. So that's where the aircraft below 19 seats are sold, whether you're talking about the small diamond aircraft or the larger business jets.
But we want to compete for that market in Australia.
These guys all want to export, and that's where the market, there'll be a market in Europe, and you have to build a market here, as Glenn says, but then you want to export it, and if the product's good, the economics of the product are good, people in the US, Asia, or everywhere else are going to want to buy it. I'm sure the Japanese would be very happy to have zero-emission aircraft in Japan, and the same as the US, Canada, other countries too.
No, I think this is very much the case. I think Jeremy even has a factory in America right now. And we have operators from America coming to see what we're doing, because actually quite interesting, you know, green is not a topic in America, at least not from a policy point of view, but they do understand unit economics, and they do understand what electrification does, and they have no problem at all buying a European product. They know that the European certification is very good, and it will be an equivalence process with the FAA, and they have no problem at all buying European products. In fact, I cannot tell you who said it, but
go on.
no, I will be sued. There was a comparison between our proposition and someone else's proposition, where the person mentioned, well, that is kind of like a pickup truck, and you're offering the 7 Series limousine, and our customers like to have comfort as well.
Yeah. The US is an interesting topic, because the market is so big that you have to be there to deliver and to support the fleet. So Airbus did the same, by the way. And for the same reason, we established ourselves in Daytona Beach in Florida. The thing that is interesting when we compare to the US, and I can testimony right now, because I have 2 factory projects, one in Europe in Toulouse, the other one in Daytona Beach, is that they are super good in the execution. And we are super bad in Europe in execution, I believe, in our stuff. So when basically in the US, as for the factory and for the financing overall, and I'm not even talking about the private sector, just the state mechanism or federal mechanism. When there is someone that is the chief that is deciding, then execution, full stop. In Europe and in France in particular, but not only, when there is a decision by the chief, then this is the start of the people voicing over to express that they are maybe not agree, that maybe can be done in the other way, and then it takes ages for that. So this is also, I think, a mindset that the thing is not to have it on a roadmap, not to have it as a prototype, but then to further expand how it becomes a product. So comes to your fact that you need a market for that. But the execution is super important. And last point that I can mention, in the financing we've got at State of Florida level, they are financing the factory, the equipment in it, and most probably also prototypes. So it's a clear financing about the execution. Now, coming back to things happening in Europe, I think you need to have 5 or 6 different financing people. They are not in line for sure because the mechanisms are not the same. And you need to plug and play all this stuff without having the same connector for sure. And you're losing a significant amount of time to try to interconnect things that has been meant not to be connected. So, it's very practical, but at the end of the day, when we're coming back to the time to market, the time for building a factory or to opening a new line, to have the tools, to have the supply process for the tooling inside the factory, and then you need at least 1 year to certify the workshop, the production, everything before you can put an airplane out of the line. So then when you peel up all the different timing, if it's not execution-based, I mean, you will lose a significant amount of time.
Leaving aside the whole green, environmentally sustainable, blah, 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 obviously it's not blah, 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 but you know what I mean. For your ultimate customers, which is to say airlines, in your case, I think ATR sort of competitor sort of products, those sorts of things, and given the incredibly complicated state of the world at the moment and the 6 weeks of fuel left and all that stuff, are the economics of an electric aeroplane likely to be at par or better than your current fuel aircraft?
Better any damn day of the year.
Better every damn day of the year. Yeah, okay. Don't hold back. I mean, what do you really think? Are they?
Yeah, but you don't have to believe me. You can look at any other sector that electrified, especially in transport. So why are people massively buying electric trucks right now? Because the logistics industry is going to have lots of insolvencies because of this rising fuel costs or fuel volatility. What's the most, I mean, there's a difference between the consumers. If you drive your private car, maybe one day of the week you go to work with your bicycle or whatever, you take the tramway. But if you're a business and you have your asset, you need to make money with that and you need to have predictability in the cost. And especially if you have a building and you can put solar on it, you can have even more predictability of what your electricity cost will be. You don't have that if you have a carbon fuel because someone decides to do something in the Middle East or it's out of our control completely. Absolutely. And you don't have that with electrification.
Mind you, you come from Germany and I always struggle with solar power in a place like Germany where it never stops bloody raining. But
you should come to Munich, the most northern city of Italy.
Prego.
Yeah, Ivo is right. The other things we have to face is that when we're talking about big jets and commercial airplane, there have been a trend of evolution of the product in the last decades. 320neo, this one. It's an old plane originally, but still with a significant amount of improvement that make it a killer still right now. Now, if you think about what's happening in the regional, in the general aviation, for the vast majority, it's very, very, very old planes. Doesn't mean that they are not good. It means that they are old. in the design, and sometimes you can improve having a neo version of some of the planes, but in the vast majority of the case you don't even have the engine manufacturer that are ready to offer something new. So it means that the opportunity for coming back to the market, we have a huge amount of plane to be sold as a replacement. So we are not even talking about opening new lines or new business model or whatever. We're just only talking about replacing old stuff. If you're thinking about the four-seater for training, it's something like 20,000 planes in the world. And if you think only about this one, there is not a huge amount of competition in the already active player in the field. I'm talking, for example, about Textron. They are not super engaged in the light aircraft because they're developing all the planes, as an example. So it means that you have opportunities, you have technologies, and you have a replacement market. So, and cost in the US for low carbon whatever planes, it's first economics, second economics, probably noise too, because this is start to be a very, very strong problem in the US.
Well, noise is an emission.
And probably economics, and the rest economics.
Yeah, right.
Full stop.
David?
Yeah, just to echo, I was the head of General Aviation before this position. The average age of General Aviation aircraft is around 40 years. So it gives you the engines that are equipping these aircraft are dated from the 40s.
Yeah.
So they have evolved, obviously, but definitely not the level of what your car is doing in terms of fuel efficiency. But that's really the order of magnitude we are talking today in some of the aviation domain that are really the most likely to be at least tackled by electric, hydrogen, and hybrid propulsion technologies.
Okay.
There's maybe a whole debate for another conference is why are the average age of general aviation planes quite old? 40 years is about right for Europe. Part of the reason is they were able to be mass produced at much lower prices in the 70s and 80s before certification costs, insurance costs, everything else went through the roof. I think if you did the multiples of a Cessna 172, you could probably buy on 2 to 3 times the average American salary back in the 1960s. Now it's 20 times because of all these costs have gone up, which then makes it and then if you're looking at any manufacturer to launch a new clean sheet design, you're like, well, why would I not just keep making the existing one when I know it and stretch it a bit longer? There's about the same reason Airbus did the A320neo, I suppose, because it's an established airframe. Doing a complete clean sheet design is, even for the Part 23 market, you're talking 100 million, perhaps, for real investment, which is part of the cost of doing business these days.
So it's the regulators we've got to blame. They're more
No, I'm not blaming the regulators. Blame the insurance companies too.
Oh, okay. Now that's a much better target to go for. I'm very happy with that.
No, but it means that for putting a new product on the market, the disruption that you have to bring on that have to be very significant. And the thing we're talking right now are disruption that are strong enough to sustain this type of thing. Right. So the battle will be hard, but yeah.
We've only. Oh, sorry.
But that's indeed why this is such a beautiful moment in time to do it, because on the one hand you have this large but very old fleet, and it didn't make economic sense to do too much, but you cannot retrofit an existing airframe with a new propulsion technology. Yeah. So if you're going to go for something new that is not burning kerosene with a turbine, you will have to do a clean sheet design anyway. Right. Therefore, coinciding with the need for replacement, but you also get the big benefit in emissions reduction, noise reduction, and unit economics improvement, makes the next 10 years the best time to do it. Right. Now, if I may make one analogy, we are right now more or less at the same moment in time when we had the first electric roadsters. There was a few pioneers who believed in it. They bought it to drive on the weekend, usually more wealthy individuals. And then 10 years later, it's become a mass product. We are on that time in the curve. So let's say 10 years from now, I would argue most of the people in the audience would have the opportunity to fly commercially on an electric aircraft.
That's inspiring. We've only got a few minutes left, so
yes,
Dave, very quickly.
Exactly the same moment. What Dave did in these 10 years, the infrastructure was built up. And also incentivizing. If you buy an electric car today, you have 20% of the price, which is offset by some kind of support one way or another. And we have nothing like that in aviation. Nothing. So that's also something we can reflect upon. Right. If we want to really change the fleet, not at the marginal cost, but really changing it truly, we can do it, but without support, it's going to be nowhere.
Okay. In the true spirit of the roadmap, I would very much like to pick up the analogy and say, roadmap is fine. What are the roadblocks? What roadblocks do you see as we go forward from here? Carl, we'll just go once around the house.
I think it's a conclusion so far. Finance, access to finance and investment.
I would name 3 things: capital available, and capital available.
Or finance, would that be another way to put that? Glenn?
Yeah, and I think we've got to be careful not to get too hooked up on finance, because if there's no market and therefore no ecosystem support for this, then the finance won't be available. So I would say it's the market.
Courage.
Courage. Yeah.
We need to have enough courage to make it happen.
Yeah.
So not courage, no deliverables, no roadmap.
And I think, if you mix all the 3 of them, you've got the magic formula to make it happen. Really.
Okay.
More staff for EASA.
And more staff for EASA, absolutely.
I didn't say it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found that as interesting as I did. Absolutely fascinating. I'd like to thank you all, gentlemen, for your contribution. And so now we're going to get to the pronoun practice part, where I ask you to join me in thanking them. Thank you. We are going to take a coffee break, and please be back absolutely promptly at 4:20, please. We have negotiated a few more. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really good. I hope so. Got a tail. Got a tail. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask you to take your seats. You've had your fun. Back to work. Party time's over. Okay, thank you very much for your timekeeping. I'm very grateful for that because I'm getting paid for how accurately on time I am. No, I'm not. Okay, the magical mystery tour of my inability to pronounce European languages extends this time, and now I'm going to break a number of other famous languages. And I'd like to invite Tania Cardoso-Simones from Eurocontrol, Olivia Yankovic from ACI, of course, Frederick Javazet, which I know I got wrong, from Swedavia, Montserrat Barriga from EASA, and Yolanda Stevens. Something went wrong with your surname, Yolanda, there, obviously. Yolanda Stevens to come up. So, welcome. We had in the first panel the manufacturers talk about the infrastructure as almost as a black box. You know, we're going to build these things and there's going to be infrastructure out there and we're worried about the infrastructure, but it's out there and it's who knows what's going to happen. Is it a black box? I mean, what we have on this panel, interestingly, is two airports, or an airport association and an airport, an airline organisation, an airline, and Eurocontrol, of course, and we're going to talk air traffic control and airspace control and those sorts of things as well. So it's a really interesting mix. I think it's a really, if I may say, really well put together panel. Where to start? Let me start with the operators. So Yolanda, you, because I'm looking at you. As an operator, we had a discussion earlier where they said the economics are clearly better with this sort of aircraft. Yeah, sure, at the moment, very small ones, but, you know, giant oak trees, tiny acorns, all that stuff. What, as an operator, are you looking for to continue your services as we move into this new generation of airframe?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, I would like to emphasize that for us it's not a black box at all. Of course, it is a black box because maybe it's a black box for everybody. Everything is still very much unknown, especially the path forwards. But the reason why I say it's not a black box at all is that we have been diving into these topics for the last 4 years, very intensely.
4 years, you said?
4 years, yeah, non-stop. So with a full team on zero-emission aviation.
Not even a lunch break?
Well, sometimes one lunch break maybe, but quite fierce. And the reason for that is that we really want to understand what's out there. Not only understand the technology, but also understand which people are working in this space, what are their prospects, what is their background, what is the cash runway, what is the financing, means of financing. Every aspect that has to do with zero-emission aviation, we really dove into. So in that sense, it's not such a black box, because I think we really know what we're talking about, and we really were able to assess which factors would be of use to us and which were not. Of course, that doesn't mean that we have chosen a winning technology or that we say we're going to do this and we're not going to do that. But we know in a certain way, we know, okay, this maybe is not for us. We are willing to help. There are a lot of people, a lot of parties in this field that we are really heavily collaborating with, also in the room today. And not because maybe the airplane is for us. We are not going to fly a 9-seater as KLM.
Well, indeed, I was going to come.
We would love that, but economically that doesn't make any sense. And also our business model is not fit for that. But because we believe that we have a role in driving industry change. We're not here as a passenger of the process. I would like to think that we are not at the drawing board because we are not building aircraft, but by committing our nature, our operator expertise, our name, our brand to maybe a small enterprise that is really putting their their whole stamina out there, I think we should do that. So that's what we did. So it's not a black box. We know what we're talking about. We believe that we have to support these parties in thriving and getting better and getting bigger. But then if we're looking at what we can do for the future, then we have to look again at our own business model.
Well, indeed, and your fleet mix. So
exactly.
We're talking the end of 27 for very small aeroplanes, which I accept KLM doesn't operate, although you do operate some smaller aircraft.
Yeah, we operate the E175, which is our smallest with our European in our European network, which is 88-seater.
Would be in the zone, wouldn't it, of the stuff that's being done at the moment on electricity, let alone hydrogen.
Yes, exactly. So that's why, of course, if you're not willing to do something different, then we are never going to change as a sector. So also, as an operator, we are obliged to look at our business model and see where we can stretch. So if we are not able to buy an 88-seater, are we then maybe able to buy a 60-seater or a 50-seater or a 30-seater? And by trying to pull the numbers, so really building the business case, and that's what we are doing, is to understand how small can we go. What does make sense? Because the economics makes sense. That's what I heard this afternoon on the panel. But the economics of a 30-seater for a cost structure like KLM has, that is the context that we're talking about. Then maybe the numbers don't add up, even if the total cost of maintenance is maybe significantly lower. And that we could say that about an electric aircraft maybe for a hybrid that's already more difficult. For hydrogen it's even different. So how small can the aircraft be? When do the numbers add up? Do we maintain the KLM cost structure, or do we look at a different vehicle, a daughter company or anything, where we can keep the numbers lower? Where we have to pay our pilots maybe less, because this is a big cost part, of course. So we're looking at all of these different things in the framework in order to assess, is this viable for us or not? Because at the end of the day, and that's what I heard this afternoon, and that's very true, it's economics, and then maybe sustainability as a fourth. So in order to convince our CFO, our board of directors, our stakeholders in the game, the numbers need to add up. Unfortunately, we cannot be idealistic here. We have to survive.
Yeah. I should point out, incidentally, Yolanda mentioned pilot costs. Yolanda spent the first significant part of her career at KLM as a pilot, which means that normally when she speaks to you, she has her back turned to you, right? So to help her out today, it might be helpful whenever Yolanda speaks if you'd all turn around, right? That will simulate the same outcome. But your analysis is very much business case driven. Is that the right word? Business model driven.
Well, I can imagine that it feels that way because I'm ending up with the economics, but I would like to appoint the first part of the story is that we dive really deep into the technology. So we work with startups in the field, we work with technology institutes, knowledge institutes to understand the technology and to get it better, to get it better where bigger airlines like us are able to use the aircraft. So our expertise, 107-year-long expertise of an operator is really helpful for the parties out there that have a lot of technological experience maybe, and sometimes not from aviation, but from automotive or battery or to help them get a compatible product in the market. Not only for us, or maybe not even for us, but for the aviation sector as a whole. Right. It has to make sense.
Okay, so Montserrat, your members, unlike KLM, and I mean this ever so nicely, but KLM is a large airline with big aircraft, some medium-sized aircraft, but big aircraft. Most of your members have really quite small aircraft, so I assume they are literally in the target for this stuff.
Yes, they are. Actually, in theory and on paper, regional aviation would be the first segment to apply this technology. However, as Yolanda said, we were commenting earlier, there is not one single airline in this room apart from KLM. I'm representing the airlines here, and it is quite telling. And what it tells us is that these airlines are really struggling today with what's happening today. They're really struggling with EU261, sorry to raise it up, but they're struggling with implementation of Refuel EU. They're struggling with non-CO2. They're struggling with the cost of ETS, the cost of fuel. They've got really thin margins, and we are seeing that a lot of these airlines are not surviving. There are less and less regional airlines.
This will solve those problems, won't it?
That should be
Refuel EU.
this is niche, and it should start niche to then be able to scale up. So for sure, it's fantastic to count on companies, airlines such as KLM, and I've been to the TU Delft lab, for example, and it's amazing, and that's exactly what we need. But we also need operators that are willing to come with actual real case studies, not implementation cases. And for that, where are they? You know, they need to come up. I've got a few examples, but unfortunately, they're all non-EU. I was a couple of weeks ago with Logan Air and Beta Technologies with an agreement with the Royal Mail. I'd love to see more of these in Europe, in the EU. We need to see more of those. And for that,
the trouble there is most European countries don't have that many islands offlying. I mean, Austria,
no,
there's
that's
just
not
no
true.
offshore islands to Austria.
No, we've got. Yeah. There are fjords. They are in you've got Denmark as a perfect geography. You've got Greece, the Canary Islands. There are a few archipelagos. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
No market at all whatsoever for the Czech Republic, for example.
No. Oh, you know, we need to find, and I think AZEA is doing a great job, by the way, in making sure that it's not just about strategy, it's also about execution and making sure that the execution is actually on track. And coming up with a scheme that supports the deployment of this technology in certain routes that are thin enough, that are, you know, high frequencies, thin routes, a few passengers, to then be able to scale up is essential. It's very important.
So we seem to be stuck at the interface between the chicken and the egg, aren't we? I mean, we are literally at the egg and chicken interface here. What do we need to break through that, to overcome that? What do your members want that would allow them to take the plunge, to be brave enough, or Yolanda to take the plunge and be brave enough? I mean, what do we need?
I mean, it was said in the previous panel, financing is absolutely essential. It's essential. It's just the capital should be there, not just for the development of the prototypes and the certification, but also the deployment. So new startup routes, schemes, so new concepts to be able to put this into practice in the market. Identify those routes that can benefit from this kind of technology and just make it happen. And I see some of the manufacturers in the room nodding, because this is something we've been asking for a long time. And we start talking about...
Asking of whom?
Discussions with the European Commission.
With the Commission?
Yes.
Yeah. Form an orderly queue for money.
We talk about existing instruments such as PSOs, but PSO is a completely different animal. PSO is there to ensure connectivity for those regions that rely on air links that otherwise would not be viable economically. Sure. But this is different. This is about deploying this technology and make it the critical mass able to be able to then progress with the technology development.
Yolanda.
And if I may react to that, because I totally agree, I would like to add, if you're looking at aviation and taxation and everything that's going on, not only on the European level, but also nationally in Holland, in my case, I think we're sometimes, we either choose between subsidizing the green or penalizing the fossil. But I think you could have both. And I don't think we understand that if you want to penalize the fossil, then you're also disabling the front runner who should pay for this whole movement, because in the end the airline is penalized. Then you are no longer able to invest in innovation. So that's why we will always oppose penalizing fossil measures, although we believe that we should be penalized, or else there's nothing going to change, right? So, but if you're going to use the carrot for the fossil thing, the fossil operation, then you're disabling the front runners who should lead the transition. So really looking at the carrot here, a strong carrot for zero-emission aviation operation, which would be beneficial to everybody, right? Everybody stepping in, because the front runner pays, that is still a very big truth, holding us back and holding. If I'm honest, also internally, if I want to convince my C-level on the fact that we have to do this, That's very difficult in a space where they're only fined for the things that they do in a normal operation.
Right, so the risk is we go top up and bottom down instead of the other way around. Yeah. So turning then from, well, no, before we get off that, for KLM, KLM's a large airline with no doubt large fleets of each particular aircraft. Even your members, Montserrat, have fleets of aircraft. They don't just have an aircraft, they have a fleet of them. So they have to make a decision that is quite broad and quite, well, brave, I guess is the right word, but it's a serious decision. But then you get into the genuine infrastructure issues, don't you? Like, where do you divert to in the event of a disaster, or, you know, the event of a reason to divert? And does that have the refuelling facilities? All those sorts of things. I mean, coming into today, I thought it would sort of be, we've got to choose between electric on one hand or hydrogen on the other. I see now that that's more linear. But those sorts of issues mean that the on-ground infrastructure is also fundamental for the fleet decisions that you're going to have to make to drive the change. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, we've got people, I'm sure, are going to touch up on our infrastructure, but absolutely. It's about the aircraft technology, it's about the real-life operations, it's about the infrastructure, and it's about the commercial use. And it's, at this point, we're talking about member states, but obviously it has to be EU cross-border, because otherwise, you know, we'll stay domestic, and that's not what we want.
No, absolutely. So, Olivia, that, I think it falls to you at this juncture, doesn't it? I mean, the airports have a really important role to play in all of this. You won't make KLM's decision for them, or Montserrat's members' decision for them, but unless the airports do something, they will never make that decision.
Yeah, this is the chicken and egg situation.
We're back at that interface.
Because, I mean, we also need to have a business case as well, to invest and to prepare. There's significant modifications to our infrastructure. It's quite disruptive in terms of operation, especially if we look at hydrogen. But of course, we have to prepare and progress while the key variables are still in the making. And we have some visibility, and the roadmap is great for that. But still, I mean, uncertainty on the timing, the scale, where it will be deployed, what is exactly the demand, and plus the access to energy. That's a fundamental issue for us.
Sorry, the access to, I thought...
Access to electricity, to the volumes we need, how we're going to get the hydrogen to the airport. These are new issues upon which our members actually have little expertise to start with.
I remember listening to you at some sort of event where you gave yet another...
Some sort of event.
You know what I mean. Where you go, I was about to say something really nice, where you gave yet another of your wonderful and inspiring speeches with that bizarre software package that you use.
Prezi, it's called.
If you'd like to be made dizzy, I do recommend an Olivia presentation. But I remember you talking about we don't want to be airports anymore. We want to be...
No, I never said that.
No, well, let me finish. But you want to be energy ports, enerports.
Enerport.
There you go, enerports.
That's the night marketing.
Yeah, okay. So it's just marketing?
No, in perspective, I mean, looking at this, of course, you know, there's a rethink within airports about what opportunity comes with this transformation. One key opportunities is, of course, the new connectivity. And I think it's very interesting when you read the roadmap to see that actually, especially for regional aviation, it's not just substitution of existing routes, existing airline traffic, but it's creating entirely new routes and traffic for intra-regional aviation, which is really exciting, I think. But the second thing is, you know, how do airports need to approach energy provision within their facilities? So far, we've taken a backseat to the point that, you know, at the moment, there's a lot of talk about fuel availability at airports.
Indeed.
We are surveying our members as we speak about, you know, what is the situation, how many days of fuel do you have left at your airport, at your location? And actually, the feedback we got from many airports is that they don't even know because the fuel suppliers wouldn't tell them. So that just shows you we're coming a long way in terms of, you know, getting into transforming airport into energy systems. But ultimately, yes, that, you know, there's there's merits in looking at how we could evolve our business model to become also energy producers and energy suppliers. Becoming energy producers, that's already happening for our Scope 1 and 2 emissions. I mean, you have solar plants being developed by many airports across Europe. That's a key part for them in reducing their Scope 1 and 2 emissions. With this transformation, you know, it's about potentially making the airport an energy hub, where, especially for hydrogen, there could be production, liquefaction at the airport side to serve the needs of course, the users of the airport, but potentially also bigger needs from the communities.
But you think that's more in the hydrogen side than the solar power, the electric side?
Well, I mean, so far,
wind,
no,
wind
I
as
mean,
well, of course.
it's happening already for solar, but now solar is mainly used at airports for our own emissions, Scope 1 and 2, yes, cooling and whatever. And the reminder, when there is excess surplus, it's going back to the grid and it serves the communities.
Sure.
I think the volumes of electric energy that is going to be needed by the hybrid electric aircraft is such that, you know, having a solar plant at your airport is not going to be nearly enough. Potentially, as far as I understand. I mean, we had some figures that if you're looking at servicing, at refueling or re-electrizing, I don't know how you say that, 3 regional aircraft of 40 seats. So the electricity needed to recharge them at a large airport would increase the peak demand for electricity at that airport by 50%. So it's a lot of energy that you need to access to. So that's the first thing, you know, how we're going to make sure that we get this electricity, how we integrate it into our existing infrastructure.
So we really have a timing issue, well, a series of timing, or timing is all over the house, isn't it? We're facing an enormous fuel crisis imminently. But we aren't in a place where we can swap out fossil fuel for other renewables or whatever. We don't yet know what aircraft are going to be available for airlines to make business case decisions and business model decisions to change things. But in the meantime, once those decisions are made, airports are going to need to be ready already, aren't they? I mean, Frederick, what's Swedavia's view on this? I mean, you are one of the countries that has islands, so it's already...
we have a few, yeah.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2 islands, yes. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, just to continue with we don't either think that it's a black box. We have a pretty good idea what we need to do. The big problem is, just like Olivier said, it's how much demand is it going to be? How is the market structure going to be in the future? How many electrical planes are we going to have? How many hydrogen planes are we going to have? And what are we building for? So basically that is one of the main issues. And of course the market, how will the market respond, and in which pace will the market respond to these zero-E aviations? But what we have done is we take it step by step. So we have started now. We know that the electrical aviation, that will probably be the first one that comes out. We already have some electrical planes flying, also in Sweden. Not commercially, but still there are some electrical planes there. So what we are doing is now trying to invest in and preparing airports to handle electrical planes. We are actually doing it already at Arlanda as well. We're refurbishing, I mean, Arlanda is more than 50 years, or 60 years old actually now. So it's quite an old airport. So we need to do some refurbishing of the airport. The entire airport needs to have new surfaces and things like that. That's an excellent opportunity to actually invest in things that will be in the ground, like electrical cables, and increase the capacity for chargers. So we're building stands now for electrical aircrafts at Arlanda. But the problem, and I heard my colleague from Avinor here today, the problem is maybe not the investment in electrical supplies and things like that. It's the cost when you charge at very high power. The megawatts, will be a lot of cost for the airlines. And when we look at the economics, when they calculate the price of every kilowatt hour, I think they are a little bit too positive when it comes, because they both want very short turnarounds, and they also want very low cost on the kilowatt hours. And that's an equation that we probably need to solve. There is one way, I think, to mitigate a little bit of that. And what we have been working on is, I talked to some people here in the coffee break as well. We're looking into power banks on wheels, where you can slow charge the power bank, and then you can have a lot of power charging the aircrafts. I think that would probably be a method to work also for our smaller airports in the future.
Which is fine until 4 aircraft arrive at the same time.
Yeah, usually at our smaller regional airports that seldom happens, and if it does, we will be very happy.
That's a good day.
That's a good thing. Yeah. So, but at our bigger airports, yes, that will probably happen. So then you will probably have to have a few stands where you have direct power into the aircrafts, and that's what we're trying to start building right now. When it comes to hydrogen, we have been working with Airbus, actually. We did a study together with Airbus and also with Avinor, SAS, and a couple of other stakeholders, energy companies, both in Sweden and Norway. So we do think that we have a pretty good idea of what we need to do at the airports as well when it comes to facilitating hydrogen at the airports as well. It's doable, but still the ecosystem when it comes to hydrogen is not there yet. So we need to work in order to facilitate the ecosystem, and that cannot only be the airport's responsibility to work with that. That's a responsibility for the entire society, because the aviation industry is not the only ones needing hydrogen. In Sweden, we're making fossil-free steel as well, which demands a lot of hydrogen. So we have a few studies, especially up in the northern part of Sweden, where we can see, okay, how can we cooperate with these, because they have to manufacture a lot of hydrogen. On the positive side is that we do have quite cheap electricity, especially up in the northern part of Sweden.
Unlike Norway.
Well, I think they also have pretty good energy productions there. But so we can do that, but it will not be sufficient for the amount of energy that we need. So the entire society needs to get more fossil-free, clean energy, and we need it cheap as well. Because we have talked a lot about this, and I think the roadmap is excellent, I must say that, AZEA. But still, we need to know the market, and the market will not pay too high of a price for hydrogen or electricity. So we need to get the prices down as well for it to actually hit the market and be commercially viable in the long run.
So is that the same chicken and the same egg, or are we talking now a different chicken and a different egg, that we've got to get society to a place where we can move away from fossil fuels and so forth?
Yeah.
And then furthermore, siphon some of that off, if that's the right word, if you're not talking liquids, siphon some of that off for aviation's purpose.
Yes, I think so. And that means that, I mean, in the aviation sector, we're quite used to collaborating with different stakeholders. We're doing it here in this group, but when we come to the ecosystem, we need to widen this. So there needs to come in new stakeholders into this that we have to cooperate with, that we have never cooperated with before. So that's also a challenge, of course, but that is doable as well. But the entire society actually needs to step up in order for this to happen.
It's doable, but let me start that again. It would be doable in normal times, but these are not normal times. These are completely abnormal times, aren't they? I mean, we run the risk of Mr. Trump. I mean, it's ironic you talked about having a good carrot. Well, he's, as carrots go. But he's...
But isn't that the perfect time?
Well, isn't it?
Yeah,
are we ready?
In crisis, that's the mother of inventions, is when you have a crisis.
Indeed.
Yeah. So actually, we don't want to have the situation that we have today with the geopolitics.
Yeah. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Or at my house, it was always mother is the necessity for invention. But yeah. That's great, but the crisis is coming to us much faster than our ability to solve these problems, and not having a dig at EASA here, certify what needs to be done, can, you know, get all this stuff done. I mean, are we running into an enormous brick wall?
Well, at the moment...
I'm being cruel to ask just you that. Yolanda, are we running into an enormous brick wall?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, Montserrat, are we running into an enormous brick wall?
I think we're working against the clock. Yes.
Yeah. Olivia?
Hopefully not.
Oh, always an optimist. Tanya?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Hooray, why not?
And I think if you see from the beginning, and the first thing that was said was we have a black box. But then there was some evolution here.
Only by me.
Yes, yes. So indeed, it's not that, I don't think it's not that, well, it's difficult ahead, but it's not that impossible. And this is really the approach of Eurocontrol. It's not that we are over-optimistic. We know, we're quite aware of the challenges, but we are in the business of supporting. And so if we have sort of an idea of a black box, what can we do to overcome it? And so hence my first sentence was really to highlight the success that it is that we have a roadmap. Because I think this is exactly what we need to do to break all the lack of information in this volatile and uncertain world that where we are. I mean, it's not perfect information, no, but we are all together giving information to the system that was put on a vision first and then on a roadmap. And at least now we have an idea of what is the ambition. It's not a forecast, and this was mentioned more than once today. It's not a forecast, but it's an ambition, and we have some clarity on the numbers. And we will have, from what I understand, a work program that will monitor all this, that will focus, that will adapt, because we cannot be, you know, again, looking at the wall and not doing something. We have to adapt. And if everybody is on board, I think everybody bringing the information that we need, then I don't think we'll hit the wall. And we don't want to be in that situation. As for Eurocontrol, I think apart from trying to make this machine in terms of information and support move, and a lot of data is also available to all the stakeholders so that you can do your own decision-making based on facts and on data. This is in Flying Green, the platform that we are offering with all the modeling that you can do for the availability of energy. Of course, we need to adapt all the time in terms of route adaptation, in terms of the financing. So hopefully, with good information, we can incentivize the right policies. And the right policies, we do agree, and it's in the roadmap also. We need financing. We need clever financing. Yes, we need everybody on board, EASA on board. We need all the stakeholders, airlines and airports, and we need innovation. And that is what I would also like to highlight. We are very, very focused on innovation with CESAR, within CESAR also. AZEA is also working very closely with this, because on the main, I would say the main bottlenecks for Eurocontrol that were identified in terms of ATM is really the sectorization, the impact of these different performances that was referred in the previous panel, the operations itself. Well, we already have a brick wall without this challenge, so this is enhanced, and ATM resources. So we do need a lot of innovation in terms of automation, really to make this work. And we will have, I think we have good support also from CESAR to make this work also. So.
ATM resources, that's an easy problem to solve, ATM resources.
I didn't say it was easy.
No. To be fair, you didn't. I agree. Why your optimism, Olivia?
Well, I think because now with the roadmap, we have something that can be actioned. Mm-hmm. You know, everything is there, everybody is there aligned. I think now it's really about how do we transform that into execution, indeed, and how do we get policy and regulations really supporting and finance. And I think there's a change of mindset in the EU about aviation, certainly. If you look at the way policies and regulations were focused the past 10 years, it was a lot about our negative externalities. Now we're seeing that being rebalanced. There's going to be an aviation strategy coming up in September. And I think that aviation strategy is certainly the opportunity to make the step forward and look at what AZEA 2.0 could be. I think that's, that's the hook I see to try to progress beyond, the work program that is going to be needed to keep going on AZEA. But then, how do we access to more financing, accelerate regulations where needed, and so on? All the issues that were discussed in the previous panel. I think that's something that needs to be core to the aviation strategy that is going to be adopted by the Commission in September.
Should I be worried that AZEA is running under the aegis of DFIS, Defence and Space, whereas the strategy is running under the aegis of MOVE?
No. I think that's an excellent traction for us. That's
a bit of institutional competition.
Well, that's the way to get things moving.
Yeah. Okay.
I would agree. There's alignment. No, the competition is good. I think it makes everything better in terms of our push to make to offer better services, etc. It's not the case of the Commission. I think in this case, collaboration is really the key, and not only between the DGs within the Commission, but also between all of us.
A little bit of friction-based collaboration.
It could bring some incentives, but I don't think that's the focus.
And if I may, maybe not politically correct, but if these wars are, if we can get one good thing about it and just be a push for the technologies in Europe, then why not? And I understand, defense is very much committed. And it makes sense because we're talking about competitiveness all the time. And if we want to stay competitive with other parts of the world, then this is the time to invest in this kind of technology. And there is good signs, that we were also mentioning earlier during the coffee break. The EIB is now starting to put their minds and their efforts into looking into supporting new aircraft deployment, new technology deployment. And this was not the case 3, 4, 5 years ago, even a couple of years ago. The EIB had civil aviation completely out of the radar, and now they're back on track. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would like to add to that because I said we're going to hit the brick wall, right? I think it's a very important signal that we are aware of this brick wall, because we're everybody thinks, oh, it will pass. We will be fine, right? We're not going to be fine. If we're not going to change anything, then we're not going to be fine. So we need to do something. This is difficult. And why I think we're going to hit the brick wall. So I was triggered by what of the previous panel was that, okay, in China, they can do this in 6 months. Why can we not do this in 6 months? I think it's
Why
because
can we not do it in 6 months?
we're not focusing on the same thing that we are directing so we're not putting our effort in the direction where it will actually make sense. We're doing a lot of things in Europe, and we have a lot of regulation, and we have a lot of opportunities, which I all applaud. But if we really want to get somewhere, and I don't know, of course, I have my opinion on where that somewhere is, but you shouldn't ask me because I'm a player in this field and I'm very much biased.
And you're a pilot, so
pilots go from A to B, so they're no.
No, I've never met a pilot who doesn't have an opinion. That's what I was trying to on anything.
But we need to focus because we have a big homework assignment to do here. We have to decarbonize aviation, which is very hard but not impossible. But we have to direct and we have to have focus. That's what I think that we're sometimes lacking. And I think the roadmap could help there tremendously, but then still we could lose our way in this roadmap if we're not careful. So that's what we're all responsible for, including ourselves. So, yeah.
I do love it when everything comes back to the analogy of the roadmap itself. We could lose ourselves, even with a map.
I would just like to mention the ARIS, because you were saying that, well, the challenges are all over, but I think we are well positioned, and thanks to Cesar and also to Clean Aviation, everybody together, there is a common strategy for aviation since summer last. And this is really something. So that means that we can work together and really start doing things to put the right incentives in place, to push for the right financing, together with, of course, the Commission. So I think this is a good example that we have in our sector. and even though, of course, Eurocontrol is more focused on ATM, it's good that we have this overall view of collaboration again, not that so much competition.
Your secret that you're only involved in ATM is safe with me. I'm not telling anyone.
It's, well, it's focused.
Yeah, just to fill in on that, I think it's very important to have this roadmap, because if you have another mode of transportation, to do an analogy, if you don't know which port to sail to, it doesn't matter how fast you sail, because you're not going to get there. Now we know where we're going, but now we need to focus. And if we focus, we can do it in the same manner as the Chinese. I'm sure of that.
Not as quickly.
Oh yeah, why not? Why shouldn't we be?
I mean, interesting philosophical question there. Does the IMO use roadmaps, I ask myself. But so what do we need to do to implement what we're doing within 6 months or within some other time frame that's more than simply mañana? Olivia, what would be your first step to implementing all of this, apart from organising a war in the Middle East and having all of our fuel cut off? But well done on organising that, by the way. Great effort.
Thank you, Andrew. The first thing, well, I think I'm coming back to the financing that was raised by the preceding panel. I think we need to make sure we have the right financing instruments at EU level, national level, to really being able to roll out the roadmap.
Is that, I mean, shouldn't we be asking the market to do the financing?
I don't think you can ask the market alone. I think you need to have public support for that scale of transformation.
Given the speed suddenly all of a sudden. Tanya, what about you? What would be your first
I would say
step?
a strategy that is put in place and transferred to actions where everybody does its part.
Easy to say, but how do we do that?
No, I can give you an example. For instance, going back to the innovation case in ATM, so there are specific projects and there is a new reinforced, I would say, focus on connecting the innovation to deployment and really looking at what do we need in terms of operations, because everybody recognizes that, of course, decarbonizing is a huge effort that we need to aim at, but we have others. We have the capacity challenge to tackle also. And if we really want to, and from there, if we solve it, we can even have more money to invest in decarbonizing. So everything is interconnected, in fact. So if we focus on that and we focus on the technology that can really bring the solutions that we need in terms of capacity and decarbonization, I think we can go a lot of way forward. Just to focus on something else other than financing. We do have projects. For instance, these trajectory-based operations, really focusing on performance. This is all contributing to what we will need in terms of performance to include all the hybrid, electric and hydrogen aircrafts that I'm positive that we will have soon.
God bless you. Frederick?
Well, I'm actually going to go with what Olivier said. I think without any money, if you don't have the money to invest, nothing is going to happen. So I think to start things off, you need to have some public support to actually get this ball rolling, so to say. But then you also need to have, this roadmap is excellent, but I think also you need to look at the market and have a plan for the market to see, okay, how is this going to evolve? Because you cannot have public support for eternity. Somewhere along the line, it has to go back in to be a commercial viable change that we're doing. So it's both. You have to start with the money investment, but then you have to have a solid business plan as well to do this.
Olivier, you were going to say?
Yeah, just to come back on the money, I think in terms of the regulatory framework at EU level, I think there's still a lot of dots that we need to connect. So, for example, at the moment, the European Commission is reviewing the stated guidelines for aviation, and specifically for the airport sector. And we are faced with DG competition, which tells us, well, actually, we should stop subsidies for small regional airports because there are too many. This is distortive of competition. And, either they become financially viable by themselves, or they can't get, they won't be able to get any more state aid. And actually, you know, we're talking here about creating a market that will solve the financial viability issue of those small regional airports. So if in the meantime we just say no more public financing to small regional airports, you know, we're basically potentially killing part of the market that that is going to be relevant for this kind of transformative revolution for aviation.
And if I may, I think AZEA has done an amazing job in setting up the strategic pathway. It's now the time to make it just not provide the governance framework, but also making a very live implementation tool, and just make sure that it keeps everybody on their toes, regulators, manufacturers, airlines, airports, energy providers, and make sure that gaps are identified, timelines are set, and that any issues with financing, investing that, you know, has been mentioned several times today, that these are addressed promptly.
Do you see at some point in the not too distant future that you have a member there? Let's assume we get over the financing problem, the certification problem, the energy storage problem, and all those other problems, that suddenly, with all these regional airports, these very small airports, and remember there are more airports in Germany than there are in China, if all suddenly we're going to be in a place where if the costs are low and the infrastructure's low and the energy's almost free, that we could effectively have an airline that comes along that does point-to-point services. Are we looking at an electric airline Ryanair, you know, a regional Ryanair? Is that out there as a possibility?
Why not?
Well, indeed. Why not?
Why not? It'd be amazing.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
It'd be really fantastic. And I think everyone wants connectivity. I mean, no one says, I want less connectivity. I have never heard that sentence. I think everybody wants more connectivity, every single citizen, regardless of where they live. And we see connectivity is declining, so we have to do things. We have to do new initiatives to make sure that the connectivity reaches to all these airports that Olivier is mentioning. It's essential. Yeah. We just see a decline in routes, decline in services, and that cannot be. That's against progress. And European citizens, there should be a right to connectivity. And I think electric aviation and net zero technology has a huge role to play.
So Yolanda, the same question to you finally. Implementation, what's the first step?
Well, we're talking about small aircraft being able to scale into, so CS23 scaling into CS25, right? There are people who are not agreeing on that, people who think that is the way. I think it's the same with our network. Why not start small? Why? I think for a certain part we're overthinking this. Of course, we should never underestimate safety, and we can never overthink safety and certification. That is always key. But overthinking what the network should look like, what the figures should be. I'm not saying that this is what we do within KLM. Maybe we are not able to. Maybe we don't have the margins for that. But I think in the end, we have to have some guts, because we have to make a decision here, and we cannot make an informed decision because we don't know the figures yet. So at some point, we have to make a decision in uncertainty, and this is very difficult for a very conservative industry that we are. So I think we need guts. The biggest thing we need is guts, and dare to choose, dare to step into something that we cannot oversee. Safety first, always, never compromise on safety, but get the people around us with us who dare to take this chance with us, so we are not the only risk-bearing party here. And this is very difficult. I'm not saying this is easy, but for me, I think that is the first way to implementation.
Yeah, one of those, the sentence you never want to hear an air traffic controller say is, I don't know, why don't we just give it a go? Let's see what happens, you know. And I don't think you want that from an airline either, frankly, but sharing the risk, maybe that's a solution. We've got 3 minutes left. One last question, which is the same last question I was asked in the previous panel. We've talked about a roadmap, we've got a plan out there. What are the roadblocks? And so to be fair to Yolanda, I'll start with you again, Olivia. What's the biggest roadblock you see in all of this?
Money.
Right.
Money again, and And I think having more political support, policy support at EU level, and this is why I'm coming back to the aviation strategy and opportunity to reverse that.
Very good.
I would choose fragmentation in terms at all levels.
Implementation.
Fragmentation. Yes, not working together, not providing the right information so that we have the right information to decide. Fragmentation.
I would also say money, but that's boring to say that again. So I'm going to say imagination. Not enough imagination. We need to start expanding the boundaries and start looking beyond the regular framework. That way we can use the innovations and take the next step.
Which brings us back to the aviation strategy, doesn't it, as a matter of fact? I mean, it's all about imagination.
So for the small airlines and to be able to have the guts, there needs to be a slowdown on over-regulation and over-costs. It's too much. They can't swallow all this.
Courage. I love any reference to the tragically hip. Yeah.
Well, of course, I think all of the above, but I agree with Frederick. I think our biggest roadblock is that we are talking about roadblocks. We shouldn't talk about roadblocks. We should talk about what are the possibilities out there and really go there. Yeah, so we're thinking in roadblocks. We should think in solutions.
It's all my fault for bringing that analogy up, and I apologise. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time for this panel. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And so, again, your task is to join me in thanking Yolanda, Montserrat, Frederick, Tanya, and Olivia. Thank you. Thank you very much. Cheers, Lumi. Thank you, Andrew. Cheers, Tanya.
I'm stoked. I'm stoked, not stoked.
Stoked. Thanks, Montserrat. Thank you. Right, we're going to redo the magic of theatre thing and put a lectern back up here, because our last speaker this afternoon is someone who I hope his ears are burning somewhat from that last conversation. It's my enormous pleasure to introduce Mr. Philippe Cornelis, who is the Director of Aviation at DG Move and is the man responsible for the aviation policy, much referred to. So Philippe, if you'd be so kind, good morning, good afternoon. Good to see you, mate. Take care.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Glad to see all of you here, still fresh after a whole day of discussions. And it's my honor, and I really want to thank the colleagues in DG DEFIS for inviting me to say a few closing words today on this topic. And first of all, I warmly congratulate the Alliance for Zero-Emission Aviation on the publication of the roadmap. It's really an important milestone in the life of the Alliance and more broadly for European aviation. It demonstrates, in particular, a way of working that Europe increasingly needs, namely to bring together the whole aviation ecosystem around a shared understanding of what needs to be done, what deployment in this case will require in practice. And that's particularly relevant at this moment as we are preparing the upcoming aviation and aeronautics strategy. It's been mentioned already a couple of times. The context for that strategy is very different from a decade ago when we did the last strategy. European aviation and aeronautics are facing today several transitions at once. We must, of course, decarbonize, continue to decarbonize while maintaining connectivity. We must preserve industrial leadership in an increasingly competitive global environment. We must strengthen resilience in our supply chains. We must accelerate digital and airspace modernization and respond to a much more demanding security context, including the need to support military mobility. A lot of issues that were really not so much on the radar 10 years ago. So against that background, the roadmap published today is highly relevant. It shows in very practical terms what an ecosystem approach looks like. It's 6 pillars: aircraft, energy, aerodrome certification and standards, airspace readiness and operators. You must have heard it many times today. Remind us that the future of zero-emission aviation will not be determined by a single technology in isolation. It will really depend on whether Europe is able to align infrastructure, regulation, operational readiness and investment with technological progress. And this is exactly the kind of joined-up thinking that the future aviation and aeronautics strategy will seek to promote. The strategy will take a broad view of the aviation system, but with a stronger aeronautics and industrial dimension than in the past. Because today, the question is not only how aviation becomes more sustainable, the question is also whether Europe remains a global leader in designing, in manufacturing, in certifying, and in deploying next generation aircraft as we had become over the past decades. And in that sense, zero-emission aviation is not only an environmental challenge, it's also an industrial challenge, an opportunity, as the last panel concluded, an innovation challenge, and a competitiveness challenge. If Europe succeeds, it can help shape global markets, not just the European market. It can help shape high-value industrial opportunities, reduce dependency on fossil fuels, and open new possibilities for cleaner regional air mobility, and maybe even more regional air mobility than what we have today. On the contrary, if Europe moves too slowly or in a too fragmented way, others will define the pace and the direction, as we have seen in other industries over the past years. So that's why also the roadmap is very useful. It does not stop at ambition, it addresses also the conditions for implementation and deployment. That's particularly important because Europe's challenge is often to move from innovation to deployment at the right speed and the right scale. And the work presented today speaks directly to that challenge. Europe starts from a strong position. We have world-class aeronautics capabilities. We have leading research and innovation assets. We have a highly respected safety and regulatory framework and strong institutional partners. But we should be clear, leadership will require continued investment, close coordination, focus, and timely preparedness also on the regulatory side. And this is why the next phase will matter so much. We need to ensure that the right enabling conditions are in place for the roadmap to realize itself, including support for innovation, support for scale-up, readiness of airports, readiness of energy systems, adequate certification capacity, adaptation of our ATM system, and of course, sustained engagement across the entire ecosystem. This is also, in my view, where the next industry partnership, the Smart and Clean Aviation Moonshot, should find its place as an agent and guardian for the implementation of the roadmap. And much will depend, of course, on future funding discussions, including under the next multi-annual financial framework, as this will decide also partly on the pace of progress. So do make sure to contribute to the call for evidence on future European partnerships. So let me conclude with 3 points. First, this roadmap is a significant collective achievement, and also my team from DG Move has contributed a lot. And it is a strong contribution to Europe's thinking on the future of aviation. Secondly, it confirms that decarbonization and competitiveness can and must go hand in hand. And third, it provides a useful example of the systemic, implementation-oriented approach that should inform the upcoming aviation and aeronautics strategy. And I want to encourage also all stakeholders to maintain this momentum, to continue to contribute to the wider reflection, including through another call for evidence that we will launch, namely the call for evidence for the new aviation aeronautics strategy that, if all goes well, will start on Friday, will be launched this Friday. So with those words, thank you again for your work, and again, congratulations from myself and my team on this important milestone, and we look forward also from DG Move to contribute to its realization. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Philip. Thank you very much, everyone, and everyone on the webcast as well. That brings us to the end of today's festivities. I'd like to thank Eurocontrol for hosting today's event. I'd like to thank AZEA for the enormous work they've done to put in and create this roadmap. And I'd like to thank you all for showing up today, participating as well as you have, and for staying till the bitter end. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.